We're getting there.
Yeah.
Moved by myself, as recommended by committee of the whole, be resolved that the council of the town of Perth, number one, approve the budget for the environmental services shop project in the amount of $5,346,979 plus HST. Number two, direct staff to include the environmental services shop project budget within the town's capital financing plan. Number three, authorize the treasurer to proceed with an application to the Ontario Infrastructure and Lands Corporation for long-term financing for the environmental services shop project. And number four, authorize the mayor and clerk and treasurer to execute all agreements and documents necessary to complete the financing as presented in Cal Report 12.7.
All right, you've heard the motion. Questions? And I'm sure there'll be a few. Mayor Brown, start you off.
A question as a comment. We all understand the concern that the people in the neighborhood had with this shop being built. But if you read the report, there's a couple of things that I'd like to point out. Is that one of the concerns was environmental, that the shop was close to the river and so on. The old shop had been there for 60 years, and this new shop has environmental measures and so on, so that it's far safer than the old shop was. And secondly, that this project is so important and there's so much detail that we're dedicating a staff member full-time to oversee the process 18 months to make it sure it's done properly. And my other comment is slightly different. You've seen the cost of the garage, and people understandably are concerned about their taxes. But when you see expenses like this and you acknowledge the age of some of our facilities, the cost makes it necessary at this time that the taxes go up a bit. Hopefully we can find a solution. What would offset it? The resident income from residential taxes would be the income from industry and so on. So we can keep going forward looking for that source of income.
Councillor Waterfield.
Through the chair to Kathy, I'd like to zero in on point 3 in terms of authorize the treasurer to proceed with application to the Ontario Infrastructure and Lands Corporation for long-term financing. Couple of questions. I'd like more details on the long-term financing. What happens if we don't get it? How does that relate to the previous motion? Are we applying for funding from two different grants, if you will? And how could this possibly have an effect on annual budgets? So I just like more discussion on the whole financial aspect. Perhaps Nev can come up and help us there.
Sure. So through the chair, I think to answer your questions, our ARL, which we discussed a couple of times, is kind of our annual repayment limit of what we can borrow. So sorry, that's right. Is what we can borrow. So for us to apply, I wouldn't see them reject it for any reason, but like any other loan, we would have to come back to council at that point and be like, we didn't get the loan. We need to find different sources of funding at that point. Do you want to repeat the other questions you had?
I'm wondering if we do not get any of the long-term financing and we go ahead with the project, we're talking about a substantial amount of money. So how will that affect our annual budgets then going forward for the next couple of years?
So I think the first thing that we would have to do is, if we didn't get the financing, is we'd have to look at our asset management plan, right? These are the big milestones that we have coming up. What are the priorities? And so it would either be shifting things further down on the road, and timing of those items and going from there. And is there other things that would be applied for? It is hard to say that you wouldn't get the loan, like we did the Craig Street, right? And that went through. and we have the ability to repay. So on paper, and like when we go to my report later on, like financially, we have strong financials,
Yes.
right? So I think for any bank, that's kind of your criteria when you're looking for a loan. But I think worst case scenario, we didn't get anything, then you would have to look at your budget. We would have to reprioritize. We'd all, like council would have to decide that the ES shop is the priority, and then we would have to work around that.
Follow up if I may, one more.
You may, sir.
So when would we know if we're successful in getting long-term financing or not? And how will this then affect the planning for the budget next year?
So as soon as if this is approved now, I can go in and I can start applying right away. I think for when we did the Craig Street financing, I think I knew within a couple months.
Thank you.
Sorry,
Yes.
just to jump in there, this organization is the province of Ontario's mechanism to lend money to municipalities for projects such as this. So this is not like going to the bank for a mortgage or a car loan. As long as we're within our ARL, this is the format. We've been encouraged by the province to make use of this tool. So I can't see any reason why we'd ever get rejected for it.
Thank you. Councillor Bird and then Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, through the chair. Question for either or both of the directors. We're looking, as discussed earlier now, of this being $500,000 more expensive than it was when it was being discussed earlier in the year. I don't need a detailed answer as to why that is the case, but I'm suggesting the longer that we put this off, this is the nature of life living in the West now. That things are just racing away ahead of us. As I say, most of us are aware that representations have been made to the public about the cost. And now this is $500,000 more than was made just a few months ago. So is there an urgency to getting on top of this and making a decision from a financial point of view?
So through the chair, what I can say is, with a Class C estimate, you've got about 15%, give or take, with that. So we knew that going into it, and we've discussed before, we're not going to know market value until we get the tenders back. And you can see just from the submissions that this was the lowest bid that we went with, and they were pre-qualified as a vendor. So we're confident in their abilities. And we were happy to see, obviously, that it was in alignment with what the Class C estimate was. And then you do have to add in the owner costs, though, as well as the contingency, which you can't build out until you get the pricing, because it's a certain percentage for certain components, including the building permit and the contingency itself. So if you ask the question, if we keep putting in, what's the cost long-term if we don't go for it, I think it's just like anything in terms of just the long-term investment in a new facility versus in a 60-year-old building and what it's going to be.
Thank you. And just one follow-up. You may not be able to do this right now off the top of your head, Director Jack, but what would be the HST on top of that? I'm trying to get some idea of how much we've got to come up with.
So through the chair, it's in the report for the HSE. I think it's 429.
Kathy, we get that back though, don't we?
We get,
Sorry, net HST is 92,634.
Okay.
So that's what we don't get back.
yeah, so as a municipality, we don't pay the full rate of HST, we get almost all of it back.
No, I understand. I'm just trying to find out in real terms how much money is involved.
You're okay then? Yep. Deputy Mayor, and then I saw Councillor McCray and then Mayor Brown.
No, the CEO was going to answer my question. I was just going to say to you, I've never heard of any municipality being turned down. This is the government giving us the money to do it.
Yeah.
The question that I have for you is, what are you looking at for term? Like 30 years to pay this back? And what do you know what the longest amount we can do it over? Is it more than 30 or is that still 30 roughly?
Through the chair, I think average is 30, but I know you can go above 30.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of us sat around here sort of in our minds, we were looking at ballpark figures during the whole thing. I'll just tell, I'd experienced doing the same thing before I retired. I built a huge ambulance base, 5 bays, huge crew quarters, offices. The numbers changed as we went along, and every few months the numbers went up higher because something happened. The gas prices went up higher, the steel went up higher. I get this seems like a lot of money to the taxpayers, and it is a lot of money to the taxpayers. But it's like anything else. We've worn out the building that we have there, and it's a health and safety issue. It's a long-term growth issue. It's providing staff with clean working conditions. We have to protect our equipment. I think as the public will understand, it's similar to saying we need to build a new rink and pool. Like, we're doing these things over so many years that the taxpayers today will pay a certain amount of it, and the taxpayers over the next 30 years are going to pay a certain amount. I am the last guy in the world who wants my taxes going up, and I know there'll be debt repayments. But I think we sort of have to start realizing, I just came back from a meeting in Edmonton a few weeks ago about this stuff in Canada. Everybody's going through this, and everybody's struggling to find money, and everybody's turning to the federal government now and the provincial government saying, you got to help us out. We used to get 90 cents on the dollar. We're lucky to get 10 cents on the dollar now to do these things. But we can't say to our citizens, we're not doing this stuff. Like, they just have to realize that, you know, I'm not paying it all today, and people 25 years from now are going to pay for this garage. So I get the number seems high, but in the long term, it is what it is. It has to be done.
Councillor McCray?
Through you, Chair, I just want to ask one question, and this is not to put on the brakes. It's just due diligence, and that is, have we received the grace from the Rideau Valley Conservation Authority and those reports that we're supposed to have done? Have we got all of that? Have we got all our ducks in order?
So through the chair, the RVCA gave us a report back in terms of what it is that we need to do. So our civil engineer has made those changes. We haven't submitted those. We haven't submitted all the changes. We haven't packaged that response yet, but we're very confident that based on what they asked for and how we made those changes, that we would be granted the permit for it.
Okay, that's just what I wanted to know.
Mayor Brown?
As the deputy mayor has already pointed out that this garage will be an improvement for health and safety. My question is on a little more practical aspect. Will it make operations a little bit more efficient?
Through the chair, I think when you're comparing a building that was built 60 years ago, yes, absolutely. Just in terms of the mechanical efficiencies that our mechanical experience will be great. Even just from an operation standpoint, in terms of how they can use the wash bay that's inside. So they're not cleaning the vehicles outside in the cold. That's a huge benefit from an operations. And then we also just have the drive-through bays. So that's just going to make everything a lot more succinct in terms of having everything within one space, as well as having your aggregate stored in a way that aligns better with what the group wants to do as well.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor?
Yes.
I do want to highlight, though, one concern I brought up with Kathy. I do have a concern over the fact that we're asking to hire a full-time person to be the project manager on top of a project manager, in my opinion. Again, when I built this big ambulance space, I was the project manager for the county. So what it meant was we hired a company to build the whole place for us. And on a weekly basis, I would spend a half an hour with the company going over, were there any issues during that week, and were there changes? There weren't a lot of changes, but I sort of think I need more information as to why we feel we have to have a full-time person looking after this building when I'm paying people $4 million to build this who do it for a living. I'm not against having a staff person be the rep for it. But I think what I'm asking for is to relook at this issue and say, maybe we start with tracking hours or whatever it is. Just not comfortable saying that I need to hire another full-time person to oversee a company that's doing the job. I don't necessarily know if it's going to be a full-time responsibility, but I didn't want to put it on Kathy's shoulders because, you know, it's just a question I had. But that's the one issue I do have with the proposal, that why am I putting a full-time staff member from here on it and having to turn around and hire another person or bring some kind of replacement in? I just don't think I need to spend a year's salary on oversight to a building that we've tendered out. The company says they can build it. They should be able to build it without a lot of issues, unless the staff are thinking there's going to be issues that we're not really aware of.
Kathy?
So if I can acknowledge that, and I can understand the concern in terms of wanting to ensure that we're utilizing the funds appropriately. So the person that we want to utilize, we acknowledge that they're going to continue on with their role as we integrate this, but we don't think it's reasonable to ask them to also then oversee a $5.3 million project entirely within the existing job description. So the $120,000 is really just an effort to acknowledge that there is going to be backfill needed to help during that time. And so it's an upset limit, and it's not necessarily hiring somebody full-time, but it's just to ensure that, we have the temporary staffing or operational backfill as needed, because some phases may be really busy for that individual, and other times it won't be. So we just want to make sure that we have the flexibility to provide that in a way that we have somebody who we feel is very well suited to take this on. And we're excited by the concept of having somebody who's internally going to be project managing this, who's going to be very invested in the success of this project.
You okay with that, Ed? Okay. Councilor McCray.
I would just like to add to that, in agreements with Kathy, is, it's a very environmentally sensitive area. We always hear Grant talking about our water and the importance of that. And I think one of the big reasons why people in the community were kicking up such a stink was because of their concern over our environment and things getting, dropped into the Tay or whatever. So, for that reason, when I saw that on the report, I thought that made sense.
Yes, Councillor Waterfield.
Through the chair, just a comment. For this whole project, I would rather be over due diligence as opposed to erring on that side as opposed to the other. And I think the $120,000 is an investment to make sure that the project is doing well, that we make sure that all aspects of health, safety, environment, and so forth are adhered to 110%.
So if I could ask a question, Kathy, I'm echoing the comments of the deputy mayor on that whole $120,000 question. I mean, clearly, if we have somebody that is more than capable of overseeing the whole project, that's a good thing. In my mind, that's a win. But I wonder, and this is where we have to rely on our CAO and our all of our departmental leaders to say that we really do need this fill-in person. Do we have somebody else within our organization that can be shifted to help out the person that's going to be overseeing the project?
Through the chair, so that would be the goal. So let's say we have somebody taking it on, and then somebody backfills their position, and then it's kind of just that domino effect.
Mm-hmm.
And so we would see it as an opportunity for you think about just building up staff experience as well within those roles, and at the same time, it would be operational backfill as a result.
Okay, so if I could as well, I had a question with respect to the grant application.
Yes.
When do you anticipate hearing back on that?
That is a great question, Chair. So I do know we have a great contact with FedDev Ontario with the local stream application, but with that direct stream, they don't have a contact. So it's been difficult to get any answers, but our feedback has been that they want to do a quick turnaround on those. They're big projects. And so I think that they want to get those rolled out very quickly within the next 2 to 3 months. So our goal would be that we'd still move forward with getting this project started. And then if it does come in, it's still within the allotted time of the project start time that they've provided, because we said October 1st. So then when we look for borrowing money, if we don't have to borrow all the money that we were asking for because we are successful in the grant, then that's all the better.
So the reason why I asked that question, and you've sort of kind of answered it, is that I, as a councillor, would feel a lot better if I was passing a bylaw to spend $3.5 million rather than $5.3 million And I'm wondering, would it throw a big, monkey wrench into this whole deal if we said, we'll approve it, but we want to know, we approve it contingent upon getting that grant approved? And I mean, it's just a question, if they're close together, do you see any rationale there at all for that or not?
I think staff recommendation would be to move forward with it regardless, because the granting competition is so competitive that we went for all that we could in terms of what it is, but there's no guarantee to get that funds. So I think do you want to guarantee as a council to reflect on, do you want to guarantee to get this project completed with or without the funds? And the funds I would see as a bonus for it.
Okay, my next, if I'm going to ask one more question, and I'm pointing at you, Nev. So with respect to the grant, or not the grant, the loan. I mean, as an ex-mortgage guy, I always want to know, I mean, I understand amortization and all of that. Do we know what kind of interest rate we'd be looking at right now? And do we have any idea of what the servicing costs per year would be if we were to go forward with this right now in terms of the loan payments?
You mean your principal repayment, like what your principal and interest would be? No, because it would all be dependent right now on how long the loan is. So if we did 30, 45, like it would all obviously change based on that. I can't remember what the interest rate is on the last one that we just did. I will say right now for mortgage loans and other loans like that, it is sitting at 3.9, 4.6 at that rate. But I wouldn't know until we actually went through. I can try to bring that back to if that's something you want to.
Well, it's an important question, I think, for us all to consider, because the amount of servicing the debt is eating away at our financial statements and how much we put out for other things. So I think when you're budgeting as a family, how much can I afford for the car loan? How much can I afford for this and that? And I think it's an important question. And I think it's a question that begs to be answered, that even if it's, based on such and such an interest rate, this is what it'll cost us per month if we go 30 years. And I guess the final question is, if we look at 30 after it's approved, can we go back to the trough and ask for 35 or 40 years? Or do you have to make that clear at the start?
No, through the chair, through yourself. When we go through the loan agreement, we put it through for whatever we want to at that point. So I would say 30, like right now, I'm like, okay, let's look at it at 30. We would have that discussion. They were like, yeah, it's fine. I'm like, okay, well, send me what you think it would look like at 45. So it's kind of like a negotiation. You have that conversation. And so even with your conversation that you had before with Kathy in regards to, like, let's say we have this grant, when that loan gets approved, it's for that full amount. But what they actually repay is what we actually end up paying as a municipality. So let's say we get the full 5.3, but you get 2 in grant funding. They're only going to give you the 3.2 at the end of the day. We're not going to get the 5.3. Does that, you know what I mean? So.
Okay, because sorry for interrupting, but that was my concern. My understanding with these loans, going from past experience, is they're not like a mortgage, and you can't prepay or suddenly say, oh, we've had a great year, we're going to throw $1 million at repayment. They're not like that. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I can't remember. I can't recall right now what the terms
I
are on that. I mean, it is set right now. And so they just come out as certain payments for your interest and your principal repayment each year. I think for budgeting purposes, it's kind of easier that way, because then that gets rolled into your tax numbers. Like, it's not going to be a full amount, because if we have a great year, I think we could forecast that for the following year. But when we're talking about increasing tax rate and things like that, I would just include the principal and the interest rate for that year, right? Instead of forecasting that we want to pay off in an extra million or, you know what I mean?
Oh, I get that. I think it's an important thing to know, because if there's penalties to prepay, then you've got to look at, well, if we've had a good year, maybe we can pay something else off instead.
My understanding is that I think you can prepay it off, to be honest, but I don't know for sure. So I bring that back.
So I'm wondering if you could bring that information
For sure.
back to council. That's all I had. Deputy Mayor?
Does our member of parliament know we've applied for this grant?
Michael and I had, through the chair, Michael and I had discussions last week about utilizing our member of parliament to acknowledge, as well as the Liberal candidate.
Oh, great, thanks.
Mayor Brown?
Yeah, just for my information, we know that we're approaching an election and there's the whole thing about the lame duck period. Could you elaborate a little bit on that?
I'm sorry, you asking him? Okay.
Sorry, through the chair, on which part of that? As of next Friday, I believe you're in lame duck period, so that's why we've advanced the council meeting to next Thursday. So you need to make a decision one way or another or at this council cycle.
All right, any further questions? Seeing none, I call the question. All those in favor? It's carried unanimously. 8.8, Deputy Mayor, you have a motion to read.
Moved by myself as recommended by committee of the whole, be it resolved that the Council of the Town of Perth #1 award contract CS 2026-06 Environmental Services Shop Construction to M. Sullivan and Son Limited to an upset limit of $4,297,000 plus HST. #2, pass bylaw number or quadruple X, being a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute an agreement with M. Sullivan and Son Limited for the construction of the environmental services shop as presented in COW 12.8.
It's on the floor. Questions? I just wanted to make a comment, Kathy, when Deputy Mayor was making his point about, why are we paying somebody an extra $120,000 to oversee a project that the company that's building the project has lots of experience in. And at first I thought it was a kind of a redundant question, but I think it is an important question. But to that end, I personally grew up in the Ottawa Valley, as everybody knows, but my dad was an electrical contractor. And I've known of the Sullivan firm my whole entire life. Mort Sullivan, the actual owner, or he's passed away now, and my dad were great friends, and they did many, many projects together. And I don't ever remember a time when anybody had many major problems with M. Sullivan. So I'm actually kind of happy that you're suggesting that they get the contract.
Thanks. And through the chair, if they've also had to submit a list of subcontractors after they were deemed the apparent lowest bidder, and they're using a lot of local subcontractors as well, which we're happy about too.
Good to hear. Thank you. Any other questions for Kathy on this one? Yes, Councillor Waterfield.
Through the chair, if this motion passes, when do you anticipate to the beginning of the project?
Through the chair, once we get council approval, hopefully next Thursday, then we would work with them on the contract negotiations as outlined in the CCDC2 form that we would utilize. And then we would come up with the initial schedule. So this fall.
This fall. Okay, thank you.
All right. Any other questions? If not, all in favor? That's carried unanimously. All right, so 8.8 is the one that we just did. So 8.9, 2025 draft consolidated financial statements and audit update. Councillor Bird, you have a motion.
Thank you, Chair. Moved by myself, as recommended by the Committee of the Whole, be it resolved that the Council of the Town of Perth receive for information the 2025 draft consolidated financial statements and audit update as presented in report 2026-COW-12.9.
Anybody have any questions or comments? Councillor McCray?
Through you, Chair. So on my walkabouts around the town of Perth, I've been asked a number of questions in regards to the 2025 draft financial statement. The first one being is it normal for it to take so long for the financial audit? And what is the plan going forward with these processes to bring them forward a little faster, I guess?
So through the chair, I think usually we have the same auditor, KPMG, that has done our audit for the last couple of years. Our normal time slot would probably be in February, which it was done last year. Last year, they did complete the audit in February, but it actually didn't come through and get passed until I was done. I was actually here, which was after April. So we had lost a staff member in the finance group in December, and the audit was, we could have had that February time slot. I didn't think that that was efficient time for our staff to get everything ready and to be able to do it in a diligent 1 week kind of fashion. I thought it would drag out like it did the previous year, which ended up costing a lot more in audit fees because of that. So I requested that we just push it out a bit, and the next time slot was what we got, which was end of June, July. So that's why it was pushed from the previous year. Do I think next year that we could go back to that February time slot? I would, because, you know, I'm now well versed in everything. I know where everything is. I'm comfortable with the numbers that are in there. I just didn't want to keep the time slot and and not be efficient with it. So we had the audit, everything was already given to them before they even came out. And it took, you know, the short period of time that they had allotted for it. So that's kind of what happened there. I will say in our area and with the rest of the county, I think there's 2 of our municipalities who just went right before us, and some of them haven't even been scheduled. So I think that is just the nature of when some accounting firms are kind of the major firms to do municipal accounting. So you kind of have to take what you get because they're kind of already have a schedule built in.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? So, all right.
So the reserves,
Yep.
not the reserves, so the balance being brought forward from projects that aren't done.
Mhm.
How does that money filter into the next budget, and how do we decide what's going forward or
So
in
through the
regards
chair,
to
so
2026?
Yeah, so if you look at the financials, kind of based on the budget that was brought forward for 2025, the thought was that we were actually going to draw out $3.3 million out of our reserves for capital projects. What ended up happening is those capital projects didn't actually end up being done. So that got put through into the carry forward reserve. So we really actually put in, I think, $650,000 into our reserves instead of taking it out. But that was the purpose, is that it's still being held in our reserves right now because those projects are still ongoing.
Okay, and the other one has to do with service delivery. So you make a reference to the level of service delivery. Can you make some comments in regards to that?
Yeah, so through the chair, I think just having been here for over a year now, and looking forward to the next budget, I think something that we always have talked about is our budget principles. And so I think one of the main principles that I think the budget is kind of sustained on is that we're, you know, maintaining our current service level. And I think from being here for a year, I don't think we can say that we're at our current service level. I think the service level changes as new projects come about, as new reports are requested, as new things happen within the municipality. And I think, you know, the council at that time for that budget really needs to think about what is the current service level? What are you requiring? Is it requiring that all the projects that we are putting up at you know, within this budget are going to be done? And what does that actually entail? And so if something new comes about, and I'm just using the ES shop, for example, you know, comes out, you know, what does that mean for that department or the people that are involved? And now what's going to be shifted if we're maintaining current service levels off their plate so the current service level stays the same, right? Because now you've added something that takes significant time, you know? And I think that's something that just, I think it's something easy that people say year over year, yeah, we're going to maintain the current service level. But I think for everyone sitting here, from when you started to now, I think you can say that the service level probably is not the same. And so I just think it's something to consider and to be honest about, and to say, it's fine to say that this level that we're at right now is where we want to be, but then what does that actually look like to be able to sustain that, to really deliver on that fully? Or are we going to go back to the level that we thought we were at, and what does that look like, and what priorities are going to shift? And I think those are hard questions, but I think it's something that everyone needs to think about.
All right, Deputy Mayor.
I agree with you totally. So Nev, you've been here just over a year now, little year and a quarter. You came from an outside accounting background. How's the town doing? Accounting wise, budgeting wise, for the challenges that we have currently and what we're going to be facing? And the reason why I'm asking you is that the comments made to me is, I don't know if we can trust the town's way they do their budgets and stuff like this, which I take complete offense to, but I'd like to hear, because you're the outsider who's just walked into this place and
Yeah.
you have seen the year.
I appreciate that question. So through the chair, I think you're in a good position. I think my style is different. I think everyone who sat in my position has a different outlook and way of doing things. So I think my outlook is a bit maybe more hands-on, and more, I would think, inclusive of all the departments to be like, that's not my forte. What Grant does in his department, he knows best, and they think it's more collaborative that way to be like, what is it that you need to do the work you need to do this year? You tell me, I can look at the forecast and say, okay, does this make sense based on what you've done before? Yes or no, so we can explain to you what the difference is. So I think that everyone here works really hard to get those budget numbers to where they need to be, and I think everyone is working really hard to really understand their budgets and how they work. And, when money's coming in that they didn't expect, to keep it there and not spend it unless that's something that we're going to have a conversation about, we brought in an extra $20,000. Here's another project that we can do. So I think that, I think you're in the same boat. I think you've said this in many regards when I've sat up here, is that a lot of municipalities are facing the same thing that we are. So to say that, Perth is in a different set than anyone else, no. I think I take to heart when someone says that, I think a lot of the questions are like, budgets are padded and things like that. And I think for me, I work really hard with each of the departments, and I will for the next one as well, to make sure that we can back up what those numbers mean.
All right. Yeah, Councillor Bird.
Thank you through the chair. Just a clarification, it's a reminder for all of us, but possibly new information to people listening in, our viewers. Just recently, during this term, we have made some changes so that if something hopefully comes in under budget, that is not that department's, it goes back into a reserve, so that if there is another project that department wants, they then come back to council, because council has the control over each project. So if we as council budget something for a project, it comes in under, that money is not used by that department, it goes into reserve, and that department now applies again for council to specifically assess money, set aside money for a project. Have I got that right?
So through the chair, yes, that is right. I think that because there's so many different line items within the actual operational budget, not to have to come to council for every little item, like if it's between trades and consulting and things like that, we do look at the expenses as an overall total, right? So let's say for my department, I had a total of, I don't know, I'm just gonna say $10,000, right? If one was over, one was under, but I'm still within that 10, then I'm okay. But if I was under each, and now all of a sudden I'm saying, okay, I'm going to do more because I have that, you are correct that that's not the way that's supposed to work. That we are supposed to have your line item, your 10,000, we actually spent 8 across all the line items. So that extra 2 would go into a reserve. And that's the same thing with any extra revenue, right? So if, my department brought in an extra, $1 million, that $1 million isn't for me to spend within the budget. That $1 million is to say that I now have that to build into reserves. That's something that would come through the financial statements and say, we actually had this extra money this year. Now we can move that forward for our budget purposes for, new projects and things like that.
Thank you. Just one observation, if I may. I had to go through my notes from Good Roads Conference earlier in this year, but I may have got the title wrong. Canadian construction industry, anyway, the overall body for that gave a number of presentations. And they said one of the things I made a note of, since COVID, the records that they've checked back, for government budgeted projects, the projects that have come in both on time and in budget is 0.013%. This is what we deal with, right?
Councillor McRae?
Yeah, I just want to summarize something, and I hope I've got this right. And what I'm hearing Nev say is the more projects we take on, the more activities we take on, and we're all subject to growth. We see that it's in the paper today, and with K-Van and also with Perthmore and the development of north of 7 eventually, and also the Meadows, all those types of things. And we're also dealing with an old and crumbling infrastructure. We have to give ourselves a bit of a reality check, and that is there's going to have to be some pretty fast and hard decisions made around maintaining the service level at the level we have it at this present time. And those are going to be some pretty serious decisions that are going to have to be made as we move into our next budget. Because as you grow, in order to grow, and in order to even maintain those service levels, human resources has to grow as well. Those things get done by people. So I think that's more or less what I was hearing from the message from Nev.
Mayor Brown, and then I think we should wrap the discussion up on this one.
Yeah, just to follow up on that, I'm sure you all remember how we agonized over doing the budget this year to try and keep taxes as low as possible. And you mentioned services, there may come a time when council has to make that choice to cut services in order to keep the tax level reasonable. That's something that's nice to think about, but it's a possibility.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we've heard the report. And we were receiving that for information, so we don't have to vote on that, right? Oh, we do have to vote? All right, so all in favor then? That's carried unanimously. So let's move on to 8.10, the submerged growth reactor, Sager system. Councillor Smith.
As recommended by the Committee of the Whole, be it resolved that the Council of the Town of Perth receive for information the submerged detached growth reactor expansion project, Sager, rock breaking update as presented in report 2026-CAL-12.10.
All right, thank you, Councillor Smith. Any questions for Grant on this one? Any comments? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried unanimously. 8.11, bylaw to amend traffic and parking. Again, Councillor Smith.
As recommended by the Committee of the Whole, be it resolved that the Council of the Town of Perth, 1, pass bylaw number 3961-30, being a bylaw to amend traffic and parking bylaw to A, incorporate community safety zones into the traffic and parking bylaw, B, establish community safety zones based on the recommendations arising from the community safety zone and school area safety review for St. John Catholic Elementary School and the Queen Elizabeth School. C, establish a 4-way stop intersection at Wilson Street East and Halton Street. D, amend speed limits on Arthur Street, Wilson Street East, Craig Street, Grant Street, Halton Street, and Robinson Street. And E, amend parking regulations on Grant Street, Halton Street, and Wilson Street East. And 2, pass bylaw number 3585-0 to repeal the bylaw to designate community safety zones in the Town of Perth as presented in report 2026-CAL-12.11.
Thank you. I'll start with Councillor Bird and then Councillor Waterfield.
Thank you, through the chair. It's not a question, it's an observation. Very happy to see this in place. I would suggest to you, from previous experience in my previous life, this is years and years overdue. And I'm happy to see it being addressed.
Thank you. Councillor Waterfield.
Through the chair, a similar comment. I'd like to thank staff for the work they've done on this report. Nothing is more important than the safety of our citizens, especially our children. And as Councillor Bird has just stated, this is long overdue. I fully support it.
Thank you, Councillor McCray.
Through you, Chair, I echo as well, having been a former trustee with the Upper Canada School Board for 4 years and working with 77 schools, our board represented. I just want one other thing added to this, and that is what is our plan to work with the school board, both school boards, in educating the public of these upcoming changes, because I can just see, oops, I just went through a stop sign that wasn't there before.
I don't know who would we call? Would you call on yourself?
So, well, Grant can answer the question, but Grant and other staff have been working with the schools throughout this process. So they're fully aware of and on board with all the safety zones. I'm not sure if they were pushing for some of them more than staff were pushing. Grant saying yes. So I think we've been working hand in hand with the school board so far throughout the whole process. So
I'm just talking about the communication piece. You know, for example, like we could put it in the loop, we could put it in the paper, you know, get that out there, because school's going to happen. It's just around the corner. They start up again.
And through the chair, I forget which piece of legislation, but there is guidelines for how you set up new or warning signs that this is coming up ahead. There's new signs, or a change in the traffic pattern. So we'll follow all that process.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Councillor Bird.
Yes, I'm sorry, it's just been covered by the CAO, but there is procedure for new traffic configuration or new signage, new stop sign. And I'm sure Grant's already on top of that. So.
All right. All in favor? It's carried unanimously. 8.12, Mayor Brown, you have a motion.
Thank you. Moved by myself, as recommended by the Committee of the Whole, be it resolved that the Council of the Town of Perth, 1, authorize the Chief Administrative Officer and Director of Corporate Services / Treasurer to execute a memorandum of settlement between the Corporation of the Town of Perth and the Ontario Public Service Employees Union, Local 435, to renew the collective agreement for a 1-year term commencing June 1, 2026 to May 31, 2027, and 2, pass bylaw number 5146-2, being a bylaw to amend the collective agreement with the Ontario Public Services Employees Union, Local 435, to add the memorandum of settlement as presented in Report 2026-CAL-12.12.
All right, so if there's any questions. I had one, and I'll direct to you, Mr. CAO, and that basically is just so everybody understands what we're doing here. The way I read this is we're simply status quo based on what we had agreed on the previous agreement for 1 more year. Is that correct?
Yes, that is mostly correct. So this coming before you tonight is just the bylaw for what council's already approved. So there's a 1-year extension essentially of the previous agreement for the dates noted in the agreement. And it just reflects a cost of living increase for that 1-year term, but all the other terms are the same. And then we'll do a more detailed bargaining session next spring.
So the cost of living is based on the cost of living for which fiscal year?
From June 1st to May 31st. It's retroactive to June 1st of this year through to May 31st.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried unanimously. All right, we're going to 9.1. You have your list of director departmental updates. You've had a chance to read them. Are there any specific questions for any one of our directors at this time? Surprise, surprise, Councillor McGray.
So yes, these are for Kathy McNally. I had just a couple of things. I just wondered how the retention and business expansion plan is going. And the other one, maybe I'll just stop with that one first.
So through the chair, we've hired our BR&E coordinator, Barbara King, who's been wonderful, and she had a great volunteer orientation session, a few of them over the course of the onboarding week, and we currently have 24 businesses signed up. Our goal is 80, but we have until the end of fall, so it's optimistic, and it's just onboarding the volunteers to support them in the role, but it's been going well.
Good. That's great to hear because I want to be able to take that back to the BIA and the Chamber of Commerce. The Chamber tomorrow because they're having, of course, their golf tournament. The other one is the senior pop-up. That was such a success and so popular and so well received, and I'm still hearing about it as I walk around town from so many seniors. I just wondered if there would be any thought of working with Maureen Crook from Perth PEP, Perth Enrichment Program, and maybe encouraging them to apply for something like a New Horizons so that maybe an agency in our community could follow through with that particular initiative because it was so well received.
So through the chair, I think that would depend on what their mandate is they do have their own mandate for the kinds of events they host. We are doing a budgeting exercise in 2 weeks for our community services team. So we'll have those discussions about what are some of the goals that we want to achieve in 2027, and that may be on it.
So just so you know, I did talk to Maureen today and they would love to work with you.
Oh, perfect.
Any other questions for any other department? So Councillor Bird, Councillor Waterfield. Bird first.
Thank you through the chair. It's really just for the CAO and for Kathy. Not a question, it's just an observation. I was reminded before I came here, the organisers of the recent event at the Crystal Palace, the Shakespeare under glass. There were some issues with lights and bulbs being out in the main building, and the staff got onto that straight away. In fact, replaced more than we were asking for. So I just wanted to pass on their appreciation of that.
Okay, thank you.
And Councillor Waterfield.
Through the chair to Grant. Grant, I'm wondering if you could give us an update with regards to the transportation master plan. Where are we at this point? What's been done? What are next steps? When are we looking at sort of completion?
Through the chair, it's tracking well, it's tracking online, but I think I'll speak to both the IMP and the TMP because they're kind of linked. We've had 2 meetings with both groups, JL Richards and then BT Engineering, and we're in the status right now of evaluating demographics and statistics for growth. So how does because this is a planning exercise, this isn't a status quo. So we're looking at the county numbers and seeing where those growth patterns are and where in the transportation component, what are the trends, like multi-use trails and increasing the cross-sectional road and networks. So that's going well. The IMP, in the same manner, we're looking at the development areas and see what those impacts are going to be to our existing pump stations and networks so that the transportation network and the buried infrastructure marry each other.
Follow up, if I may, and the way it's tracking at the moment, when do you anticipate completion?
Both of those are timed for Q2 next year.
Okay, thank you.
I'm going to go to the mayor first and then back to you, Councillor McRae.
Yes, Director McNally, you mentioned in your report about local loop. I just wondered when the next one was planned on being issued.
Through the chair, it went out this past week. Yeah.
Did you have anything further? It went out this week. Okay, Councillor McRae.
Through you, Chair, to Grant. Has there been any thought to having even giving consideration to having our bylaw officers possibly work a Tuesday to Saturday? And the reason I'm asking is because Saturdays we have so many tourists in our towns, and what's happening is they're parking anywhere and everywhere, including in zones where they shouldn't be parked. And there are a lot of people in business that are having difficulties with deliveries and those types of things. So I'm just wondering if there's been any thought or to that type of thing.
So through the chair, it's something that we can explore and investigate. I'd be interested to know if there's been some past discussion or thoughts or decisions made related to that. And then also looking at our bylaws to see, if there's certain dates that certain restrictions apply and don't apply, and sort of just look at that business case as a whole. It's something that staff could maybe look into.
So, sorry, so Amanda, can you tell me then, would you be looking for something from the BIA?
If they want to send along any comments with any concerns that they have, I would encourage them to do that. Especially if they've expressed concerns. It would be good to understand what those concerns are.
Okay.
Councillor Bird, you had a question?
Yes, if I may through the chair, I'll switch what it was. It was an observation about, yes, there has been discussion of this in the past. But primarily the reason is what they do now is not just parking and the enforcement of property standards and all the rest of it, which is why they didn't stagger. I think there's merit in it because, as I will say, the parking on Saturdays is more abysmal than normal in this town. And that includes, I think what you'll find is if you want specific cases, it's intersections, too close to intersections, cross corners, obstructing entrances and exits for businesses, Kelly's Flowers, for example. It is bad on Saturdays, particularly in the downtown core here. You should see the parking outside the town hall here on a Saturday morning. So that would be specific examples if that helps you at all.
I just had a quick comment I'd like to make, and it's to Grant. It's more of a concern. As we evolve as a town, when it comes to the transportation master plan and all of that, I am sure everybody in council have noticed as well, there are more and more e-bikes on the road. And I've been witnessing e-bikes going down major sidewalks at high speeds more and more. And it's just a matter of time that somebody's going to have a serious collision with a pedestrian. So with respect to that, is that sort of thing going to be addressed in that plan of yours?
It's a topic, and I share that concern. The speed, the volume, the lack of safety devices on various versions of electric bikes, traveling on the sidewalk, traveling on the roadway, not abiding by traffic movements and road signage. Those are all concerns of mine. The team is aware of it. I am not up to speed on that particular item, but it is a deliverable for us from the TMP.
Okay, yeah, I think it's something we have to look at going forward because it is a new evolution of transportation for many people. Councillor McCray.
I just wanted to give an example of, I'm going back to the situation on Saturdays, okay, with everybody. We have so many tourists coming. So here's just an example. The town went to the trouble to help a particular restaurant in this town because they have their business is solely pizza delivery. And so we're extremely busy during Stewart Park Festival. So the town was kind enough to block them off a space, and they actually brought the cones and everything and the signs and everything for them to utilize that. A tourist parked in that area and then just took off. And so, but there was nobody to enforce the bylaw or to do anything about that situation. And they were parked there for hours. Then what happened, that car moved. Those pylons were still there. Somebody moved the pylons from the public, general public, shoved them onto the sidewalk, and somebody else parked there. So their whole the whole idea of them being a pizza delivery service during that, the Stewart Park Festival was just a fiasco for that particular business. But I hear about that again and again through different people that are involved, that are trying to make, a living out from a business in the downtown core. Because some people are just so disrespectful on the weekends when it comes to parking. They just park wherever they damn well want.
So you're basically saying that because there's no bylaw enforcement on weekends, therein lies the problem primarily. Would that be
Well,
correct?
there's no one to enforce it.
Okay.
And I don't find Sundays as bad. I mean, I live in Market Square, so I'm up and down and around the street. But Saturdays especially, when things are all open and everybody's, visiting Stewart Park and the wonderful amenities we have here in Perth.
So to cut to the quick on that one, I guess the question would be to the CAO or to Grant. What can we do to mitigate this? Is there something we can do? Can we ask the OPP to take over on those days, or what are your suggestions?
I think Amanda and I have heard the comments that are in the discussion tonight, so we'll have a conversation about what that service level looks like and potentially bring something back to council.
Okay, great. Yep, please do.
Just to note too, if there's anything ever that's sort of urgent of nature, the OPP does have jurisdiction under the bylaw to enforce that also. So if there was, I'm not saying to call the OPP for anything, but if there is somebody blocked in or something that's not safe, that's also a mechanism to use.
Good to know.
Okay.
So I'm going to go to Councillor Bird and then to Councillor Smith.
That was going to be my question, because during my time, unless something's radically changed, municipal officers in municipalities where there's a municipal police service have authority and use bylaws and have bylaw tickets. In my time, the OPP did not. That it was not part of their contract, and they never carried them or issued them. They will deal with Highway Traffic Act offences, and a corollary to the Highway Traffic Act is your concern about e-bikes. I think at the moment the province is not on top of this as legislation wise, as to what nature of vehicle they actually are, and so there's a little bit of catch up coming there too.
Right. Thank you for that. Councillor Smith.
I have a question for the fire chief. On Wednesday evening, there was a fire drill. There was a fire drill at Carolina Court. And I just want to ask the chief what the department learned after getting 160 old people out of the building.
Through the chair, we learned that ice cream is a good motivator. This was actually a drill that was put on by staff that we were sort of monitoring. So it's good to monitor that. We will do an annual drill where we have to witness them and watch them do another scenario where they're not actually moving everyone outside. Yeah, it can be difficult with that many residents, but staff did an excellent job, and our staff being on site, it was good to see how it will roll out. And there's always complications in something like this. So there's a debrief happening next week.
We were told that it was a training exercise as well for the fire department. There was certainly a lot of firemen there.
Yeah, through the chair.
Women.
Yeah, through the chair. Yeah, we use it as an opportunity to train and to see how staff is going to react, how the residents will react, and then how we can react as well.
All right. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Anything further? No. Any other questions? The clock's ticking here. All right. So if there's no other questions for any of the directors, I don't believe we have any new business tonight. Our next meeting date will be Tuesday, September the 8th, 5:30. Mayor Judy Brown will be the chair. Questions from the media? All right. There's anybody listening? There's no one online. All right. We have no closed session, so I would ask Councillor Gary Waterfield to take us out.
Moved by myself that the regular committee of the whole meeting held on August the 11th, 2026 adjourn at 7:30